Good morning, everyone. We are pleased to have so many of you here with us today for our webinar on the future of work, the new normal. In this webinar, we shall be exploring what the future of work will look like and what will be the new normal. We shall be discussing the current pandemic's impact as a catalyst for change and its impact on the working environment. First of all, some introductions. With us today, we have Andrew Morgan, who's the co-founder of Hardsoft, who will be speaking to you shortly. We also have Greg Guilford, who's the CEO of HR Solutions. We are hosting that today. So he will be talking about the impact on our own business. And I'll be here to field the questions and to check on any technical queries that you might have and hopefully resolve them for you. We will allow you to ask questions. You can ask them as we go through the presentations, and then we'll try and field some of them at the end for you, at the end of each presentation and at the end of the webinar. There are a significant number of attendees on today, so for obvious reasons you are all on mute. But as we said, we do want to hear your questions, so you can use your chat panel. If you look, there's a section highlighted for you to raise your queries with us, and as I say, I will monitor them throughout, and we will ask them at the end. We are recording this webinar, and you will be sent a link after the webinar with access to the video, as well as a copy of any slides. We want to make this session as interactive as possible, as what we normally do in our physical events, so we will be running a series of polls throughout the session as well. When we have a poll, it will appear on your screen, and you just select the answer that is appropriate for you. With the coronavirus having spread around the world, quite suddenly the vast majority of us have had to adjust to new ways of working. Many companies had to close up their businesses or quickly switch to home working in order to comply with the government regulations. For some, this challenge was easier to achieve than others. Before we hand over to Andrew and Greg to discuss how their companies adapted to a new normal and the support that they provided to their clients, we just want to run a quick poll. So our first poll is, were you able to deploy your employees to work from home quickly? We'll just let that run. A little bit longer. I think most of you have voted now, so I'll close the poll for you, and you should be able to see on your screen the poll results. So we have 87% of you said yes, and 13% of you said no. Okay. So Andrew, and interesting, as a lot of people said they were able to deploy quickly to work from home. So I'll hand over to you to talk about how this worked for yours. I'll just hand over the presentation to you.
Okay, thank you. Good morning. I'm just trying to stop my Slack updates coming in, which is going to disturb us all. So just bear with us 2 seconds.
I've just switched over to you.
So you should be looking at a very odd photograph at this very moment in time. And that was working from home. That was in 1983, working from home with my brother when we set up the business many years ago. So I just want to introduce a little bit about who I am and Hardsoft. So 1983, that is a Dragon computer, an English-made computer. When we did have an English computer business, and we started then, and where it all began. Where it's currently is a little bit different, but we are still a family business. So we first sold our first PCs back in 1988, and some of you may remember the Amstrad computers and the infamous Alan Sugar School of Computing. We did see an opportunity that as the cost of PCs became expensive, believe it or not, a computer then was £3,000 or £4,000 rather than the £300 or £400 as it is now. So we saw an affordability issue. So as a company, me and my brother looked at the fact that you could lease a franking machine, a photocopier, a car, but why couldn't you lease this newfangled expensive computer? So we developed a unique leasing solution for business users. We had a step change in our business about 10 years ago when we became an official Apple reseller, as they call it. And that means today we are now within the top 10 league of Apple resellers in the UK, which is where our business is now. So we are basically an IT company selling essentially Windows and Mac computers via a leasing method. Currently, that's, I will say, turnovers at that figure. Hopefully we're going to get that figure for this year, but let's talk about that. And as we went into the pandemic 3 months ago, or 84 days ago, we were at 40 staff. So COVID and us, I was on holiday in Antarctica, believe it or not, for some strange reason. But I came home on the 1st of March, and the first impact was supply issues of computers. So my partner Phil, you know, the conversation was, you know, we just can't get enough computers. The factories in China that were supplying Apple were just coming out of lockdown. And at that point, we just thought, me and my partner, that coronavirus was a Chinese issue, nothing to do with us, and the impact on our business was just going to be supply. And at that point, we started buying and sourcing as much product as we could. So probably going into March, we had more stock than we've ever had before. 2 or 3 weeks later, customers are panicking, and the concept that you may have to send staff home was becoming an issue. Interestingly, but hindsight's a great thing, so currently previously 80% of our laptop shipments were Apple products. Suddenly we're shipping 80% of Windows laptops. And literally, we're getting involved with manufacturers that we've not sold for years. So some people might remember Toshiba. Suddenly, we're selling Toshiba laptops because they're the only people who've got them. Lockdown began 23rd of March, like most of you here, and as you said, 87% of you managed to get out of staff home pretty easily. We did as well. And the business goes into a plateau. You don't know day to day what's happening. You're looking at your costs, you're looking at your staff. You're trying to understand what the furlough staff means, but we need to furlough some staff. We're trying to protect the business. We get to last month, May, and existing customers are ordering. Interesting, we've got a lot. Our existing customer base are ordering machines, and business is pretty good. What's changed is new customers that we rely on almost to feed the funnel and keep us expanding and moving forwards have semi-disappeared. And based on the fact that our business model is based on leasing and financing these customers, we basically ended up with the issue that we were easily able to finance to look after existing customers, but new customers became a sort of a financial issue. June, we're now in June, and most staff are back. We've still got a few staff not back, and they're generally staff that have got childcare issues. The schools aren't back, which has had an impact on actually getting them back into the office. And that's where we are now. New concerns. I do have concerns, like we all have concerns. One of them is actually a productivity issue. So I think when everyone jumped in their cars and disappeared home, productivity increased fantastically. Productivity increased. I think everyone was at home, very concentrated. There was no distractions. Almost people didn't even want to turn the TV on and look at the TV anymore because they didn't want to hear the bad news. I am concerned that distractions will come back into business. The coffee shops are all opening, and friends and family are allowed around your house now. So do we have to deploy remote monitoring software to judge productivity? I can't really judge productivity at the moment. I feel it's good, but it's more of a gut reaction rather than anything else. So that's number one. Employers are liking work from home. I liked working from home for a bit. It's nice. Before we almost let the genie out of the bottle as employers and change employment contracts, because when you change something, you can't go back. So it does concern me that before we all get too involved with work from home and get too excited about this new normal, as it were, should we? I think we just should pause before we head straight on into it. Security, and I don't mean security as in do I lock the door at night. The security is in the fact, as a business, you know, we're in IT. We look after 5,000 clients and their Macs and PCs, and just you can see the impact of work from home. A massive rise in security issues in terms of phishing software, malware, in particular ransomware. You've got a lot of users sitting at home who used to be able to sense check, shall I open this email, yes or no, with colleagues. They can't do that anymore. So you need potentially to put a system in place to either clamp down on the machines. But what we found with looking at software solutions is putting an extra layer in slows down the process, so then you're back to the productivity issues of work from home. So there's a house of cards happening. The other thing in the back of everyone's mind in the new normal and the future of working is there going to be a second wave? Depends what you read, where you read it. I mean, you see in the papers today, China is stopping flights and Beijing's not taking deliveries of Scottish salmon. You don't know where it is. Do you commit to work from home? Can you set up a long-term business plan anymore? I've just come out of a meeting about reinstating quarterly meetings. I don't know if we're all in that planning stage of our business yet. I think as a business, we've spent a lot of time developing lots of processes and procedures, but it's a bit like nobody's been here before. Hardsoft as a company, we've seen several recessions. You know, the banking crisis, we remember the one before that, 1993. As a company, we came out really strong. We ended up purchasing our freehold of our offices in every recession. So every recession has been good for us because we're offering an affordability, a lease program. But this one's different. It's not just, it's everybody's in this together. So we did spend some time, and hopefully we all spent some time in this new normal, not just sitting at home trying to understand how to speak Spanish like my wife, or one of the things I've learned is how to drink better quality red wine, but working on the business, which Most of us get frustrated on a day-to-day working in the business at the coalface. Every day's a challenge, answering your emails. I think the great thing about, and there is a great thing about COVID, is you actually able to almost step away from the business. So we try to develop new products for a post-COVID, during COVID world. One of the facts was that we had massive uplift in people inquiring about short-term hire. So because Google doesn't quite understand what we do sometimes, it's been delivering a lot of inquiries into us about, and this is just for business users, we've sent all our staff home, we need 10 laptops. And then what we found was a lot of schools have not been at all organised for this this issue. So we've developed basically a short-term hire solution over several days, several weeks for both schools and businesses. And we've gone from 0 to 750 laptops on hire in the last few months. That seems to be increasing. It is at a cost to our business because we've had to buy those laptops. So not only is the income not as great as it used to be, but we're also now talking about investing money into the business. We've also tried to change some of our flexi lease solutions. You know, we traditionally, I'm sure you have all got a car on PCP or a lease, and you commit to 2 or 3 years. That sounds a bit of a commitment at the moment. So we've worked on some finance schemes where customers get flexibility to come in and out of agreements. We've refocused as the market's changed from Mac to PC and desktop to laptop. We've still got stocks of desktop machines from February that just have not moved at all. However exciting we make them, people don't want them, which is understandable. Interestingly, which is sort of buried and not really mentioned, is that the cost of laptops has increased probably 15 to 20% since February, and that's purely a supply and demand issue. A lot of manufacturers, Intel, who make the chips, didn't predict this, and they're the problem in the chain at the moment. But if anyone wants a deal on a desktop, there's plenty to be done at this moment in time. We'll look at more security solutions. Customers are asking for security. So it's not only us as a business sitting in COVID that are having concerns about security. People are saying, hey, Hardsoft, what can you offer us? So moving on, current actions in the business. Believe it or not, employing new staff. Again, sitting back and looking forward, we've seen that our staff structure is a bit flat almost. There's the entrepreneurial sales spirit at the top. We've got some great employees and who are probably hopefully listening at the moment in time, so I need to give them a nod and a thank you. But in the middle there, we need maybe some finance team, certainly some bolstering in digital. We have had to restructure some existing teams. So one of the immediate impacts of COVID is people are working from home. We don't install computers anymore. We used to have engineers in February installing computers every day, sitting in vans, seeing customers. People don't want to see us anymore, which has its issues. So our technical on-site engineers are now office bound, which has great, cost savings for us because we're not paying for all these fancy engineers and fans. But there is some negatives to this as well. Naturally, we have all sat down. I'm sure we've all sat down during this and looked at every direct debit going out of the business and sat there and thought, what is this? And I reckon we've been paying for things that we didn't knew we've had for many years, and the usual answer from everybody has been, well, we've just been doing it like that for the last 10 years, so we just keep on paying it. But until the directors, you've got more time, you're working, you're back at the coalface. We're almost back to where me and Phil were in 30 odd years ago when we're running the business, and you actually look at every bill that's coming through the door. Current actions is we definitely, and I would recommend you all getting a smooth solution to your video conferencing setup. I think we all started with using the webcam that's sitting on your laptop, and actually they're really poor quality. You need to start believing, and whatever happens, work from home or not, the fact that you don't go to meetings, I think, is a permanent change. There is no point going to see a guy 100 miles away for 10 minutes and shake his hand. A, you won't be able to shake his hand anymore, and B, you can do a lot more calls remotely. So getting a proper system is important. So we're going to move away from we've adopted Logitech, and we need to get more systems there. Additionally, the thing that's been blinking in the background here is my Slack software. So putting in some more software to get more of a community spirit, and I seem to get more emails than I've ever had before. Slack's managed to move them out. There are alternative teams. There are other things that we can look at. There's a one-to-one thing that I want to look at, which is about almost coffee breaks. So people remotely can have a quick coffee break. It's the old water cooler principle that is lacking in remote working. So you've got to replace things that you've had with new processes. One-to-one for a coffee break. Even when you're doing an email, sometimes as you know, I send emails to my digital colleagues and say, can we change that bit of the website, change that bit? And it doesn't come very easily across on email or Slack, so sometimes you need to send a little video clip, which we can now do. There's a few tools out there to do that as well. We can embed in there. So that is my little presentation done. So I'm now going to work out how to stop screen sharing.
Okay, don't worry, Andrew. I'll take that one from you.
I think I did it.
Okay, I'm just switching presenters. Just give me one moment. Hello, everybody. Hopefully you can see the right screen. So we're going, before we hand over to Greg, and we're going to run one or two more polls. But I think, can we just ask you one question, Andrew? It was a really insightful presentation on both the impact on your staff and your team and how you moved to home working, but also how you have been able to support clients and how you could support clients, and how this has been a real learning process for you in terms of what different kinds of support they might need. And we just wondered, what do you think has been the biggest single impact on your team as they've tried to support both themselves and your clients?
I think a few comments there. I think customers, because we're back to that concept as we're all in it together, I expected a lot of our customers to be more stressed about moving to work from home. But I think that spirit of we're all in it together, my technical team managed it really well, because customers were actually really quite nice about it and almost quite apologetic about, you know, I'm really sorry, but I've just picked up this computer and I've just taken it from home and now it doesn't work. And that was a good thing. We did have more technical, got some stats there, but you know, at some point we were 2 or 3, and number of calls per day coming in were 2 or 3 times more than normal. And you know, some of our technical team, like Ben, has worked remotely, and we used to have offices differently. So we've sort of worked remotely, and we do have quite a good software system, ticketing system, and nothing really fell apart. But even our technical guys were the same as you and everyone else in the fact that they were working from home and they had the same issues of, can I come in and borrow an office chair? That was probably number one question, probably after request, probably after, can I have a second screen, or some of them even asked for a third. But I think we coped pretty well. But I think the customers were nice. I think the technical team would. I mean, hindsight is a great thing, and I don't think anybody, you know, whether it's government or whoever's in charge of this current hindsight is a great thing, but in this case, I think there's been a step change here in terms of computers and IT. We need to have a plan in place. Every customer needs to have a plan in place. And when we do, a lot of people sent people home, literally just sent them home and almost expected them to get on with it. And that was a challenge.
Absolutely. We have had one other question. It feels more topical to ask it here. Somebody said, what would you recommend I do with my old devices, desktops that are now out of use? Which is an interesting one.
So as a company here, we're about to start a scrappage scheme. So we all know the car scrappage issues. So I guess the question has got a second part to that, in the fact that the question has already got a new laptop and now has got a pile of equipment sitting there. We can see, there are places to recycle machines. The problem machines are your PC World Packard Bell machines, which unfortunately are not worth a lot of money. If you've got a decent machine that you spend £500, £1,000 in the office, you will get not a lot, but £100, £150. I can give you a very good company which we can take offline. I can give you an email, sorry, a web address of somebody that will sell via eBay for you, pick up your machine, put it on eBay for you, donate a percentage to charity. So you feel ethically, but realistically, you're going to get £100, £150 for probably a 6-month-old desktop PC.
Mm-hmm. And do you do the clearing it of data to make it secure to actually dispose of, however you dispose it? Do you offer that service as well?
So in the olden days, you used to get a hammer out and take the hard drive out, smash it, all the rest of it. Things have changed now. So manufacturers like, for instance, Apple and all the recyclers, there is a very, and you can get, at the end of the day, you need a waste certificate. If anyone challenges you, you need to be able to give them a certificate. And I think one of the things I was going to talk about in the presentation, which I didn't mention, is the issue of GDPR. We, as a company, we spent loads of money on GDPR and trying to protect data and looking after what happens if you change a machine, and are we going to get any fined by the ICO? But there's that. I just wonder sometimes in this current pandemic, we just all forgotten about GDPR. But certainly, simple answer is yeah. You need to get your machines done properly before someone knocks on your door and sends you a fine.
Okay, thank you. And do you offer trading of the leases like Apple do?
Yeah, so one of the things we've done that for the last couple of years. So we'll trade in any PC or Mac. Macs do have greater value, significantly greater value than a PC. A 5-year-old iMac can still be worth £300–400, which is phenomenal as against what I mentioned for a desktop PC. One thing we have changed though is we used to offer it as a trade-in. So traditional will give you X amount of discount against a new machine, new laptop. We've changed that now because people need money in their pocket. There are pressures for cash. Cash is king, that old adage. So we've now changed that, and we will now give you the cash up front. Well, not up front, but once we've collected the Mac or PC. And then we'll roll you into it. So we try to separate it out to give the customer the cash in his pocket to start with. Okay,
thank you. Really helpful. Thank you, Andrew. So let's move on to one or two more polls. If I just launch the first one of those. So before we introduce Greg and talk about furloughing, we'd like to ask a few questions to get a sense check for where you all are with this. So we're going to simply ask, did you furlough any of your employees? A simple yes or no. Just collecting the responses now. Okay, I think most of you have voted. I'll close that poll. And I'll share the results with you. So probably less a distinct difference between the yes and the no on this one than we've experienced in some of the previous webinars, but still a significant number of you have furloughed employees. So we'll be looking at that and the impacts of that shortly. I'm going to launch another poll now for you, which is, have you started to unfurlough some of those employees and all the challenges that brings? Okay, I'll just close that one off now. And I'll share those results, which again is quite interesting. There's a significant number of you have started to unfurlough some employees. So we'll be talking about all the different ways you might have done that and the different options available to you. And then we've got one final poll for you. And that one is, have you started to bring employees back into the office or the factory or into the working environment? I'll just launch that poll for you. There's a distinct difference between returning to work from furlough and still working from home, or coming back into an office or a factory or a hotel when they're open. I think most of you have voted now. I'll share the results. So no, there's a significant number still haven't brought their employees back to the office. I guess that's significant to the fact that at the moment they're gradually opening different things, and we've got retail open at the moment, but there's still a number of employers who are not able to open for various reasons. So, okay, thank you very much for participating in those. It's very interesting. So I'm now going to hand over to Greg, who I think is going to talk next. But in March, we sorry, have you switched over, Greg?
Yep, I'm in control.
Okay, thank you.
So it was interesting to see those polls because obviously being in HR, we've been supporting a lot of our clients through this challenging period of time in the furlough. So just to recap on some of those figures there. So about 60% of you have furloughed staff, which probably is in line roughly with what they were saying. About 70% of companies in the UK have furloughed staff. But about 67% of you are starting to bring people back as well, which is definitely true to what we're starting to see from our client base. But only 40% of you have started to bring people back to work, which I think we're starting to see a few more conversations about that happening now. But the next couple of slides, I just really want to talk about sort of what we've been up to and how we've been supporting our clients through this sort of challenging time. Obviously, there is a new word in our dictionary. So in March, we quickly had to adapt to this new word, which is furlough, of course. Rishi Sunak announced the furlough scheme, late one Friday afternoon, and obviously the team very quickly were inundated with calls from clients wanting to take advantage of this new furlough scheme on their employees. And obviously this. Those of you will appreciate there wasn't a lot of guidance out at that time, so we were trying to sort of support clients through this new scheme without the full guidance being out. So our team really rose to the occasion to make sure that we had all the information we had and could support clients as quickly as we could. as that sort of guidance changed over time, it did mean that we had to sort of adapt the guidance we had given and continue to give to some of our clients as well. I'm not going to go into the details of the furlough scheme really today. It's more about talking through how we've been supporting clients. We have lots of information on our website, which we're happy to send links around afterwards. Obviously, Rishi has evolved and now created an adaptation of the furlough scheme, which is now called the Flexible Furlough Scheme, which most commonly referred to as FFS, which those in the HR world have used other versions of that. But this does mean that companies can start to bring back employees from furlough and on a part-time basis. So they might not have enough work for somebody to come back in their sort of full role 100% of the time pre-furlough, but they are able to, from 1st of July, to start bringing back employees on this part-time basis. And there is various connotations in terms of the percentages and how much the employer and the furlough scheme pay. So I'm not going to go into detail again today, but we have got guidance on that on our website if you want to know further information. But obviously, supporting clients, we're already starting to have conversations with them about what can they do and how they're going to unfurlough their staff into this scheme, or even they may have unfurloughed some people to then put back onto a flexible scheme. So there's difficult conversations to be had over the next couple of weeks and months about how to manage that scheme and make sure you are doing it fairly as well, which is quite often a challenge in terms of who you bring back and choosing those individuals as well. Probably like Andrew, very early on, we were inundated with clients around the furlough scheme, but also some people who still had enough work to carry on, but they needed to send their employees home to work from home. So that did present other challenges. Technology would have been one aspect of that, and we don't support with that aspect of it, but we might have signposted people what we were doing and what things they might have been able to consider. But obviously, like Andrew said, people were concerned, or clients were concerned about, well, the laptop's gone home, the monitors have gone home, the chairs have gone home. We haven't kept track of everything, and we tried to support clients in terms of quickly getting an asset list of some of that stuff as well, to make sure that when we do return back to the office, that the equipment returns as well. Other things were about making sure that there was a safe working environment for those individuals working at home. We did hear horror stories of people saying, "Oh, I've got a stand-up desk now," but it transpired it was their ironing board. It wasn't really a good working environment for them to be working in. Some people are taking out drawers out of their chest of drawers and put in a chair with their feet in where the drawers used to be. So we're trying to help clients sort of deal with those challenges as well. Making sure that they were able to do working assessments of some individuals at home, and providing support and guidance on where they could to change that. And in some occasions, they've bought equipment to send to the individual's home as well. Obviously, the security aspect of it was key as well, in terms of people working on their home Wi-Fi not always secure. Making sure that they change their default Wi-Fi passwords and stuff like that. I know you probably wouldn't expect a HR company to get into that kind of detail, but we've been through it ourselves, so that's kind of the guidance we would have been sharing with our clients. Also, there was a lot of our clients who had staff who were working from home, but also were teachers. Their children were at home, maybe both parents were working at home, and still had children at home that they were supposed to be now the teacher for as well. So we were supporting our clients with those conversations as well, encouraging them to be flexible and supporting the employees, and obviously allowing them to still continue to support their family at home. And in some occasion that might have been that they used the furlough scheme where necessary, if they're really young children and they couldn't do any work. But other options were being a bit more flexible in terms of when that employee provided their time. So it might be they switched from a 9 to 5 kind of environment to doing more work in the evening when the children were in bed, that kind of stuff. And in some occasions clients could do that, and in other occasions they couldn't. It would really depend on the nature of the role that they were performing. As a company, HR Solutions quickly adapted, and we were using Teams. I know Andrew said he tried Teams and then sort of started moving to Slack, but we're kind of everything we do is within a Microsoft environment, so it made sense for us to use Teams. But we, have had conversations with clients about what's best as well. There are lots of alternatives out there, GoToMeeting, Zoom, etc. But I think the key thing was to use some of that technology to continue to talk to staff and have meetings. Probably had more meaningful meetings than we've had in the past, because you're conscious that you want to make the most use of that call, so you're not having an hour-long meeting that could probably be done in 15 to 20 minutes. So I think technology has definitely helped us and our clients to keep engaging with ours and their employees. As a business, we've talked to a lot of our clients and supported them with difficult conversations over Teams as well, where we might have been involved with those furlough conversations with their employees as well, and we have done that via Teams in a lot of occasions as well. The other aspect is, obviously your employees are the lifeblood of your organisation, so we have been advising our clients how to keep their staff engaged during this period of time. And it's not just about the use of Teams to have one-to-ones and have those meetings, but also sort of more meaningful engagement tools, understanding what's going on with them individually as well. So that might be the use of engagement surveys to understand and ask what's really going on, but also what else the company could do better, and then respond to those surveys as well. And we've run those for a couple of clients as well, and some of that feedback you get is something you wouldn't necessarily have picked up on a one-to-one. And we've done some of those survey tools ourselves, and we picked up on things that we kind of assumed that people weren't that interested in, and maybe in normal working in the office it wouldn't have been something that was a high priority to them, but now that they're working from home it has become more important to them. For us as a business, we used to sort of have general chats with our staff in terms of just telling them what's going on in the business as we're doing sort of walk-arounds, but now we have a more formal monthly review of the month before, tell them new business wins, what our turnover was, and where we think sort of the next month is going. Partly it's giving them a bit more confidence in the business, but also they just want to know a bit more information. Some of the other things were about we thought that we'd done enough in terms of having morning meetings and lunchtime chats with our staff in terms of keeping them engaged and talking to each other and having a social element, which is probably what a lot of people miss in terms of working from home. And then we thought we'd done enough, but the survey sort of fed back that actually they wanted a bit more, and we're now doing sort of bi-weekly quizzes, which the team are taking ownership of themselves, and we've got a couple of quiz masters that rotate their duties, which is going really well, and we get good attendance, and it's a bit of fun and a bit of light relief, which I kind of expected some of the staff to just not want to be staring at a computer anymore, but actually that's what they wanted, so that's what we've done for them. So as I was mentioning, we find a lot of our clients are finding their employees are wanting a bit more information, not less during this period of time. So keeping them informed of what's going on in the business. If there are significant changes, that they talk about that quickly and openly and honestly with them. And we've encouraged our clients to have those regular updates with all of their staff as well, because at some point we will come out of this, and you will want your employees to be engaged as we come out of it, rather than looking back and going, well, I wish the company had done this instead. So we are not necessarily leading an example, but we understand, because we're getting a lot of feedback in terms of how other clients of ours have been supporting their staff. So we've managed to pull forward some of this best practice that we've seen from our different clients, and obviously other stuff that we hear on the news and throughout LinkedIn and wherever, and we've kind of shared those experiences as well, because I do think when you get back to the new normal, you are going to need to have your employees engaged and committed to sort of helping you build that business back up. The other things we've been doing with some of our clients is helping them support the ongoing training and development of their employees. It has been a long time with people working from home. Typically the e-learning hasn't sort of taken off previously, but obviously now you're not going to be training staff in a training room, so that is going to be probably quite a way out until companies start to do more physical training again. So we've got a product now that we can offer e-learning training to our clients and their employees. Some of that is soft skills, and it might be just addressing potential issues that have been identified in terms of using technology, and it might be any of the Microsoft products, Word, Excel, but also just using Teams, and you can do some courses on that, but also about sort of time management, all tools that we can roll out. But also we have access to thinking about the next step when you come back. Roles might have changed, duties might have changed, so there is some more career development tools that we're able to deploy to some of our clients now as well. And they're typically 20-30 minute modules that employees can do, and so obviously, if people are furloughed, they're allowed to do training as well. So you could encourage some of your staff to do that as well, so that they're still learning during this sort of period and come back with perhaps new knowledge and skills that might be useful for your businesses. But also just helping them maybe develop their careers. So maybe they were ready for stepping into a team leader or management role, but not necessarily had some of the knowledge that goes with that. So we've been working with some of our clients to sort of upskill some of their employees during this period of time as well. As some of the results of the survey said, there are quite a lot of businesses going back to work, so opening up their premises. Some of the challenges we are having with our clients is about supporting them to convince their employees that it is a safe environment to return to work. Working with them about risk assessments, understanding the risks in that building and how to negate them. So the 2 meter distance in, a lot of clients have put tape on the floor, introduced more hand sanitizers, more soap, perhaps made some desks no-go areas where you can't use the 2 meter rule to get to them, and or spread people out. Also thinking about where that you can't adapt some of that working environment to think about maybe you could have people coming in shifts, or some of the schools are using these what they call bubbles. So you might have a team that only come in on a certain day. They might come in for 2 days a week, but then another team might come in another 2 days, and it's the same people, so they're not sort of cross mixing with lots of different people, to try and help reduce any sort of risks around COVID. I mean, every business is different, and we will talk through each scenario with our clients to try and support them where we can, but also some other practical tools like a checklist for somebody coming back to work, almost filling out a form to say that they do not have any COVID symptoms, because obviously you don't want somebody to come back to work if they have some COVID symptoms as well. So there's lots of things that we've been doing with our clients to support them and be ready to have their staff come back to work. And there's some that they're not in that position yet, but they're still starting to think about how to make it a safe working environment for people as well. I think we're not going to lie. We do think there is going to be some challenging times ahead, and we are already having some of those difficult conversations with clients as they plan for the future. The new normal for some organisations will mean less staff because turnover has gone down and they don't see the bounce back happening for a couple of months, and that is unfortunately just the nature of the world. There will be a lot of conversations that clients will need to look at downsizing or reducing working hours of some of their staff, and that is quite a challenging conversation for our team. There's a lot of sort of negative conversations we're having with clients, but we are supporting our team in terms of how they deal with those conversations to make sure our clients are getting the best support they can. Obviously, everyone will have new ways of working, and we are trying to help all of our clients think about what that new normal looks like for them. Typically, that is a resource planning review to help them think about what do they need when they come back to work. It might not necessarily just be about employee numbers. It might be about who they bring back and when. Do they use the flexible furlough scheme? If so, how much? Trying to get them to think about the different options available to them, because it isn't all about just making redundancies and then bouncing back. They could use some of the furlough schemes still until October to sort of help manage their business and keep those employees employed. And also in some cases, when people have been in this working from home or shut their business down period, the business has adapted and changed to different demands in that period. So, as Andrew was saying, some roles may have changed and the duties may have changed as well. So, when you get back to the new normal, it might be that you need to update some job descriptions for members of staff, issue variations, contract letters, that kind of stuff. And they may now want to move to working from home on a permanent basis, or come into the office 2 days a week and work from home 3 days a week. So that kind of conversation is also stuff we're supporting our clients with at the moment. So that's kind of all the things we've been doing with our clients. So I just want to kind of run through some ideas in terms of what I think is the new normal for a lot of businesses out there, and how that works with employees. So we feel that employees are likely to have their priorities are likely to have changed, and they'll be a bit more focused on self instead of worrying so much about work as well. So thinking more about their work-life balance, when in the past maybe they were just worried about doing a good job, and also maybe a bit more presenteeism, where they, if they're not at work, people are worried what they're actually doing. I think this period has demonstrated people can work from home. Obviously, there will be some employees that maybe have not risen to that challenge, but in the main, I think you'll see that there's been a positive outcome from people working from home. I think that you'll see that there continues to be this increased demand on employees wanting to work more flexibly, typically around working from home, some if not all of the time. They may want to reduce their hours as well. There will be this increased awareness from employees about company performance. So I think you'll find people will want to continue to know what's going on in the business, how the company is performing, and that might be so that they can sort of have an input and help the company improve, but also an element of job security and a concern for themselves in the future as well. And I think if you have a positive story to tell, then you should definitely be sharing that. But if you are thinking about sort of downsizing, then as I'm sure you're all aware, if you are making redundancies, you need to sort of communicate as soon as you made that decision. I think there will be an increase in employees wanting more information, so it's not just necessarily about company performance, but understanding about the nuances of what's actually happening day to day as well, maybe cross-team information as well, sales and marketing getting a bit more involved with actually how their operations team are running, and client feedback. I think in the past people tended to get into their silos in the functions, and I think working from home, people have been actually engaging with different team members more, and I think you'll see that continuing. As I mentioned, roles and duties of a lot of staff are likely to have changed, so we'll see a lot of new businesses looking at how they evolve and building in tasks so that they can adapt sort of post-pandemic, and that will be about maybe new roles, but also changing current duties of staff as well. One of the key things I think we're going to find is talent acquisition, recruitment will change. There's inevitably going to be more candidates on the market, but equally might be some candidates who are still employed but may have become disengaged with their current employer, and that might be due to how they were treated during the furlough period or lockdown period. Maybe there wasn't this lack of communication, lack of engagement, and maybe they just don't feel valued by their organisation anymore, and that might prompt them to want to leave. But they might obviously continue working until they find a new role. But I think whereas in the past companies, and maybe there was this kind of war on talent, I think that will continue, but I think there'll just be a lot more candidates out there available, and that's going to change how people recruit. I see quite often people are talking about, well, what is going to be the most popular recruitment question that people ask at interview, and that is, how did you treat your employees during COVID? And it'll be on the employer to kind of tell that story, and the candidate will take that as, well, how did that company look after you? And it will be a sign as to how they would expect to be looked after in the future as well. So those that maybe treated employees badly during this period of time might struggle to recruit good staff in the future as well. There's obviously a lot of talk about mental health. People working from home on their own, it does have an impact on the individual's mental health, but that's likely to continue as we return to a new normal, as people are probably likely to still have concerns about the workplace, is it safe, but also their job security, their family and their future generally. So I think you'll see companies need to invest a lot more in supporting their employees with mental health as well. And there's some easy tools out there in terms of EAPs, but your mental health first aiders are one, which is slightly more challenging when everyone's working from home, but engaging with your staff and understanding their concerns and supporting them is going to be key as we sort of return to a new normal. I think the use of technology will increase, and that's not just about equipment. People will probably use laptops more, but also it's about how they access some of the software as well. So there's obviously been an increase in webinars and meetings online. Well, that's great for the environment because there's less travel. Some people have loved it, some people have hated it, but I think you'll see that there's going to be that technology will increase. I think once we get back to normal, I don't think there'll be a quick shift for people trying to have face-to-face meetings, and you'll still see people having these online meetings as well. Obviously, one of the key things in this new normal, at least initially, will be the working environment restrictions as well. So that will include a limited number of staff that are available on site potentially. Obviously, the new guidance on hygiene, your 2 meters rules, increased use of hand sanitization, and also you're probably going to have a load of tape on the floor and posters on the wall in terms of reminding people about all these rules. That will put some people at on edge as they return to work, because it won't be the working environment they left, and they'll come back to what might feel like a very alien working environment for them. So how you manage that and bring those people back is going to be a key thing to overcome as well. Obviously, office layouts may have changed as well, and how you deal with visitors on site. Are you going to allow suppliers to just knock on the door and come in and have a catch up? You might push some of those conversations to online meetings or calls going forward as well. So that was kind of my run through what I think is the new normal. I'm going to pass over to Sue now to see if any questions have come through as I was talking.
Yeah, we have had 1 or 2 questions, Greg. Just following on from your new normal at the end of your presentation, do you think that we will see a shift to e-learning totally from this?
If I'm honest, I think initially you will. I think employers will not necessarily want to have a trainer on site or send their staff to a physical training venue unless it can be demonstrated that it's safe to do so. So what might have been a small meeting room for 10 people in the past might be a much larger room that people are spread out, but equally then you've got the challenges of what you do for snacks, food, coffee, that kind of stuff. So I do think at least short term that e-learning will definitely see an increase, and I'll probably take a guess that you're going to see normal training not resume until probably sort of mid 21, as sort of businesses will be focused on getting back to normal and not necessarily want to spend money on training, whereas e-learning is obviously a lot cheaper to deploy. But I think people's confidence in being in a room full of people won't bounce back till sort of mid next year.
Thank you. And on a similar note, with resetting for the new normal, as most of us have done, do you think it's necessary to actually go back? I guess that's an industry-specific thing, really, isn't it, or a business-specific?
Yeah, I do think it will be specific to that business. I mean, the furlough scheme and was about if there wasn't any work available. So if work does become available, then people could be considering unfurling people. But do people continue to work at home? I think the challenge will be what the government guidance is saying. If they're saying continue to say if you can work at home, you should, then I think we would definitely be advising our clients that that's what they should be following. Personally, I think that you're going to have this mental health issue if people don't come back to a new normal and sort of get to see colleagues in a normal working environment, because a lot of people, it's a social experience for a lot of people as well, being at work, not necessarily in a normal office. If businesses can't work from home, and there will be many hand skilled roles out there that require people to be at work, and so long as that company has done the risk assessments and de-risked it for their employees, then I don't see why people can't go back to work.
Oh, absolutely.
The question is should they? I guess is a different one. But as long as those environments have been de-risked and they're safe to go back, then I wouldn't personally see an issue with doing that.
Yeah. And somebody's mentioned quite rightly that occupational health can help with people's mental health and in finding the root cause of their anxiety associated with changes in the business. So EAPs, if you've got one of those schemes or access to that kind of information and support, are all very much valued by people at the moment, particularly.
Yeah, I definitely would definitely advocate, occupational health may be a solution in terms of helping those people back. A lot of EAP schemes will have some element of counselling over the phone or face to face when they can do that. Some schemes will have that built in. So I would, as a company, you'd probably want to explore those options first. I mean, it would really depend on how severe the company felt that situation was. But I guess some of it will be about the company being able to convince them that they've done everything they can and made that environment safe. Because I guess occupational health will probably be they don't feel safe or are anxious about returning to work. Well, if a company can demonstrate they've done all they can, then that will be fed back to that occupational health specialist, and that occupational health specialist may give some additional guidance, and it might mean allowing them to continue to work from home, or it might mean they start to do a different role within the business.
And on a similar tack, it's do you believe that current employee engagement and performance management solutions are equipped for the new normal?
I think
interesting.
Yeah, probably traditionally people have been slow to move to online performance appraisal systems and are used to doing sit down one-to-ones and maybe write up a form that may or may not end up being typed up. I think it's horses for courses, isn't it? So if you have a system that can monitor performance, then it's working. If it wasn't working before COVID, then you probably need to evaluate whether you need a totally new system or whether you do things in a different way. I mean, I know personally, a lot of our staff, have been task focused, so we haven't necessarily focused on objectives as such, because the objective was to keep clients happy, and we know that sales are coming in, we know calls are being answered, we know cases are being closed. So I think performance management is subjective to the industry you're in, and definitely if you think an individual is underperforming, then performance management should continue.
And finally, what sort of measures have you taken within HR Solutions to support staff during this period and in preparation for a return to our new normal?
So we, when lockdown sort of first happened, the very next day we encouraged staff to come into the office so that they could take as much of the equipment home as possible. We were lucky, we do use Hardsoft for our equipment, and so everyone does have a laptop, and we were very easy. It was very quick for us to send people home. The challenges are just working from one screen, in the nature of what we do, as you know. So people were taking monitors and additional keyboards and mouses. So we adapted very quickly and sending people home. We were conscious. Not only were we dealing with the change in working from home, we were also dealing with the new furlough scheme as well. So we we arranged for the morning meetings, so at 8:30 every morning for people to drop in. It was more of a social kind of almost the coffee break type scenario Andrew was talking about, so that people could sort of have a cup of tea and set up their day. But early on we were very much going, oh my god, the guidance has changed, what does it mean? We were adapting to that daily, in terms of, well, this is the guidance we expect you to give to clients, as you know. And we also had a lunchtime kind of session where people tended to have lunch and chat. If someone was noisy, they got muted. They weren't allowed carrots, or crisps, but we were allowing them to catch up on the day, and it allowed them to have that social interaction that they would have normally had in the office. People would have made tea and coffee in the morning as they were going to their desks, and tea or coffee and lunch over lunch periods as well. So we did that. Obviously we were very busy, and we were conscious that people didn't want to go on holiday because they couldn't go anywhere, so we wanted people to our employees to have a break. So we gave 3 days lockdown leave to all of our staff to take within the first original lockdown period, which was the end of May, and then we extended that to the end of June, just because people weren't taking holidays and we wanted to make sure they weren't going to burn themselves out. So it was additional leave, but it was to be taken in this period, rather than carried forward sort of post lockdown, which I think went down really well, and a lot of people have taken that and got the rest that they needed. Our team, as you know, Sue, was probably doing 10-12 hour days because the demand was there. So it was, we've got a great team to make sure that the clients are being supported. We have done these engagement questionnaires to understand what else is happening, and what might be something that somebody didn't want to air, and it's been done anonymously, which we've responded to and used to engage the team more. And now we are doing these virtual monthly updates as well, which I think have also gone down really well.
Thank you. Well, thank you to both Greg and Andrew for a really helpful and insightful discussion. Hopefully you've all found it useful. If you have any further questions, then the inquiries address is on the screen, and our telephone number. Please do contact us. We'd be more than happy to help offline. I think we've covered most of the questions online that came through while we've been working, but if there are any more, we will come back to you directly. As mentioned at the beginning of the webinar, we have increased our webinar program, and we are running one a week for the next few weeks. So these are some of our upcoming webinars. There's probably going to be at least another one in July, and as we're working on at the moment. So we're trying to respond as in this changing climate. So if there is ever anything you would like us to cover, we'd be more than welcome to receive suggestions as well. We do produce a newsletter. If you want to keep in the loop of what's going on both within HR Solutions and generally, you can just subscribe. If you go to our main website, there is a link to subscribing for news updates. All of our webinars are recorded, and we store them in a webinar archive, which is also available on our website for you to access. And we'll be sending out links to today's webinar after this as well, to all those of you who've attended. So thank you, Andrew, thank you, Greg, and thank you all for attending.
Thank you, Sue. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. Have a good day. Bye-bye.